Good morning. Once again, as we give a little space for everyone to jump on over the next 2 minutes, I invite you to, well, if you're comfortable, close your eyes. And the title of today's reflection and meditation is Small Joys, Big Medicine. Maybe you can spend a little time dropping into what that might mean for you. Small joys, big medicine. Hmm. It's interesting because we all know what joy is. We all have a grasp on what it means to feel joy or to be in a state of joy. And yet if you investigate various disciplines to get something of a definition, it's not really direct. In some schools, joy is seen as a state of inner resilience, enduring happiness. I think that probably comes closer. In well being, if you were to look at it on that level, on a health, it's linked to the rest and digest state of the nervous system. So when the nervous system has kind of come to a place where it can just simply relax, rest, and digest. And in that relaxation, it's doing what? It is digesting life. It's digesting your your events that have happened. It's digesting whatever place you're in that moment in your life. That's interesting, right? And then in psychology, joy is rooted in aspects of your life. It's said that you experience joy when you have connection, meaning, presence, and inner alignment. That joy is a natural quality that happens when you have those things. But that doesn't really tell you what joy is, does it? And in many of the mystic traditions, joy is linked very much to communion, communion with the divine or communion with self. But it doesn't say what actually joy is. So if you had to define joy, how would you define it? What kinds of descriptors would you give for the word joy? And I'm not going to focus on that. I'm going to focus on the natural, implicit, assumed meanings we have for joy for this theme. But I thought it might be an optional homework that you could go a little deeper. What is joy? What is joy? I mean, in a way, I almost want to reduce it to brain chemicals. Joy is the sensations that happen when I have a lot of serotonin or dopamine and other brain chemicals that are are pleasurable, are pleasurable. That's the closest I can get to a definition, is that the body is experiencing pleasure, the mind is experiencing pleasure, and the fruit of that is joy, and enduring joy as well. If you're doing an activity that doesn't have an end, or uh, doesn't have a limit point. For instance, if you have an addiction, you have momentary joys that are followed by momentary agonies because of the lack. True joy would ripple through, and you would never feel the lack, even when the circumstance changes. Small joys really are the biggest healing. It's a paradox, because as human beings, we are truly made for grandness. We have so many examples. Think of examples in your life when you've had a big thought, a big revelation, a big idea. Even if it's just big compared to your present life, or if it's big, measurably big, there's something in us that is expanded in that bigness. So, how could it be then that small joys are the only joys? That every joy we have is a small joy, but that small joy is big medicine. Hmm? It's a penetrating of a paradox that the mystics knew so well. I love this. Thich Nhat Hanh said, "The miracle is not to walk on water, but to learn how to walk on this earth." I added the to learn part. To walk on this earth. Small joys in the Buddhist tradition are not accidental occurrences. So they aren't things that happen to us unexpectedly and then they fill us with joy. Like, ah, that would be more like wonder or awe in the Buddhist tradition. They are the fruit of attention. When we attend the very incremental moments of our lives, we reclaim our inherent joy, the natural joy that arises from presence. Maybe presence itself is joy is one of the colors of presence. I like that's a nice thought, right? And Thich Nhat Hanh said that happiness is available at all times. All we need to do is help ourselves to it. So if we're not helping ourselves to it, but we say we want it, then there's something we're not letting go of. There is something we're hooked into. In the Hindu, the Bhakti tradition, which is the devotion tradition, joy is a relationship, not feeling. It is joy is the natural fruit of what? Of devotion. And devotion is simple acts of love. So here in the Bhakti tradition, you have joy interlaced with love and devotion. It's the returning of the heart to what is beautiful and what is tender and what is true. That gives a nice color of joy as well. Meister Eckhart, who I've quoted numerous times, says so eloquently, if the only prayer you ever say is thank you, that is enough. He saw small joys as a doorway to the divine, that joy is both a sacrament and a medicine. Stopping in the small joys is sacrament and medicine. And Rumi of the Sufi tradition says, let the beauty you love be what you do. And with that, not in the same poem, he says, though, somewhat tangentially in another poem, there are 1,000 ways to kneel and kiss the ground. So in his Sufi tradition, joy is a softness. It's a softness. It's a warming of the inner atmosphere. It's the inner bowing in reverence to all life. Think about when you bow in reverence to something. What are the sensations that happen? There is a release into it. There's a relaxation. There is a certain humbling. that makes all things available. I think of the many prostrations I did in the monastery, and there was always something that was so humbling in this Sufi way. Humbling in this Sufi way. It's misunderstood to think prostrations are just simply self effacing or abasement. Like, I'm not worthy, I'm not worthy, I'm not worthy. For me, it wasn't like that. All the many prostrations we did during the day were a way of softening my atmosphere of my being to be even interpenetrated by the divine. This is powerful, right? This is powerful medicine. In neuroscience, small, frequent moments of joy strengthen the neural pathways, especially of what? Of resilience. Isn't that interesting? Psychologist Barbara Friedman calls them micro moments of positivity. Every time you take 10 to 30 seconds, it's measurable. You can measure the shift in the brain. The emotional regulation centers gain stability. So you could today even take as your practice that you're going to stop. I don't know, you could have some beads and say, I'm going to do half of these beads and stop this many times for 10 to 30 seconds for a micro moment of joy. Because that micro moment of joy, even if you're going through a very difficult time, it is found, it is found in the very moment. You could do something as simple as this. Take the hand and place it on the cheek and feel the sweet sensation of the hand on the cheek. It doesn't have to be so intentional with the heart and looping your whole life into it. You can do that. But it could be even smaller with no spiritual intention, just the sensation. You know, it reminds me of babies that get such joy out of what? Out of sensations. They reach their toes, and as they're pulling on their toes, they laugh. Little sensations, little joys. I was just with my nieces, and the youngest one, Tessa, who's 4, I threw her over my shoulder. I'm still strong enough to do that. And I was joking. This was the night before Thanksgiving. I said, "You're just a bag of potatoes." I'm carrying around a bag of potatoes. And then I flipped her around and I held her over the couch and I said, I'm going to make a potato casserole. And I dropped her on the couch and I started kind of lightly digging my hands and I'm mashing my potatoes into the casserole and I sprinkled butter on it. And she was, of course, she was laughing with all the sensations. Then I picked her up and I took her to the refrigerator and I opened the refrigerator and I stuck her head in the refrigerator. I'm sticking you in the refrigerator till we cook you tomorrow. Then we finish that. And what's the first thing she says after that laughing? Make me into a potato casserole again. She wanted the sensations again. That wasn't giving her some life meaning or purpose. That wasn't exulting in any way. That was just a sensory experience that set her into laughing so much that she just wanted it to happen again. And because of relationship, we could do it again. I didn't have time to do it a third time. You know, this could have gone on, as you know, with children, could have gone on all night. I could have made her into a potato casserole 72 times and she still wouldn't have gotten tired of it. The smallest joys can be the biggest healing. I want to posit one other reflection with this. I'm going to draw upon my building the monastery because it's such a luminous example. It was a big project, right? It was a big project. And there were only 2 moments in that project related to the project. There were other stressors that happened, but related to the project, there were only 2 moments in all those years that I experienced stress that momentarily eclipsed the joy, the enduring joy. But all the way through, I had literally in my body and my mind and my heart only an enduring state of joy. And I attribute this to 2 things. The first was leading up to that time, I had 6.5 years of living in this small joy experience. Because monastery life is so orchestrated, it's and we were so ritual rich. Joy was woven into every single day. The way we did fast days, the way we did feast days, everything had such meaning to it that it was geared and orchestrated to release such sweetness for me. And you can imagine if 10 to 30 seconds of a micro moment of positivity can shift your emotional regulation center, imagine 6.5 years of that over and over and over. And so I was well established, I think, in the small joy theme that we have today. But the other piece was that state, that inner state, allowed me to, without thinking about it, without needing to apply it, hold the paradox that I was orchestrating a massive project, but everything was the small joys of the day, the small tasks of the day. I was able to be in each of the moments. I was available. Think about anything in your life that has more complexity to it. Could be one relationship. It could be all your family relationships, the constellation. It could be commitments you have in your community or with spirituality in that community. It could be anything where there's complexity. How often do you allow the complexity to pull you away from the simple joys that are available at all times? What you do in that moment is you deprive yourself of the big medicine that's available to you. The mind can deal in delusions and lead you to believe that if you don't get caught up in the messy complexity, that if you don't, that you're not being proactive, that you're not being responsible, that if you tend only the small joys, that somehow you're going to mess up or not figure a way through a big problem or a big constellation of needs and desires and discernments, whether they're happy making or not happy making. But that would be an error in thought. Because as you move yourself into being rooted in the small joys, neuroscience is showing it, you shift into your body systems. The nervous system, neuroscientist Rick Hansen says that micro moments, if you 10 micro moments, they can prove in the neuroscientific world that you have a stronger, a safer, and a happier brain. Period. You have a steady supply of the brain chemicals that go along with joy. So, do you want to let go of the delusions today in a new way? And you can even do it in a small way. Don't fool yourself and think you are capable of making a massive decision and totally giving yourself over. If that were to happen, you would have the rush of grace that would lead you to that. But if mentally you want to do it, know that you may not have the capacity to make a big choice for small joys, but you can do micro moments. Surrender to small joy, release and experience. Surrender to small joy, release and experience. And trust that the complexity of your life is going to receive the fruit of you from a safer, happier, wiser place. All right. So we'll move into our contemplative practice now. I invite you to close your eyes. And we're going to simply use my example that I gave of sensory pleasure as a way to have micro moments during this contemplative practice. So begin by taking the left hand and placing it on the left cheek. And just relax into the sensory pleasure of skin upon skin. I even like to just tap lightly because moving close and away can be pleasurable. We're going to stay here for just a moment. And then release the hand back to the left leg, placing the palm down on the left leg. Do the same there. Relax into the sensory pleasure of the palm upon the leg. And the marvel that you've got a leg and you've got a hand and they can connect. And now take the right hand and move the right palm to the right cheek. Do the same, let the sensory pleasure. You can even press into the cheek, make a circular movement, or simply let it rest there. Relax into this pleasure. And now release the right hand back to the right leg, placing the palm somewhere on the leg. And let that be a sensory pleasure, the wonder of this hand touching this leg. And now we'll do something a little silly. We're going to flare our nostrils or wiggle the nose. And see if you can just relax into the flaring. Hopefully, you're able to flare your nostrils. And if not, that's okay. Just do something that moves your nose. Just relax into that sensation. What's it like? You can make little sounds if you want, like little puffing sounds through the nose. And relax. And now just take the tip of the tongue and let it be on the roof of the mouth. You could play a little bit and tickle yourself. It's possible to tickle yourself. Or you can just press on different parts of the roof of the mouth because there are sensations, there are chemicals that are released when you do that. And if you get the right spot, you even open the Ajna chakra. And relax the tongue. Now we're going to move to the lips and pierce the lips. And just feel what that feels like to have that pressure of piercing the lips together and holding it for as long as you can and then releasing. And feel what the release feels like. Is there a bit of a rush? And do it a few more times. And relax. And now, wherever you may be, imagine that there is a warm sunshine casting its rays upon you. That you're in this comfortable, warm receiving of light. And you're just imagining. You may not be in a place where there's any sunshine at all. Let there be a smile on your face, a subtle one. Now move the attention to one last place, to the toes. And just wiggle the toes, being attentive to the sensations of the toes wiggling. And then relax. And in this last small moment of our practice, inwardly offer gratitude for something, anything. Remember, not small is never too small. And bringing our practice to a close, draw the palms together in front of the heart and open the eyes with namaste. Namaste. Have a wonderful day, everyone. See you tomorrow.